Hi guys, tonight we slip quietly into London in the early 1700s, and you are already awake before you mean to be. The light is thin and grey, pressing through small window panes that ripple the world outside, like water. Somewhere nearby, a church bell coughs into life, not ringing so much as reminding you that time exists and that it belongs to everyone else now. Smoke from 1,000 hearths hangs low in the air, sweet with coal, sour with whatever last night's fires were fed. You lie still for a moment listening. A cart cacks, a man shouts, a dog answers. This city never really sleeps, it just changes posture. And honestly, you probably would not survive this without a strong stomach and a flexible idea of comfort. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you are here, tell me where you are listening from and what time it is there right now. London would love to know. Now dim the lights and imagine yourself pushing upright on a narrow bed that is more rope than mattress. The wood beneath you is rough, worn smooth, only where generations of bodies have shifted in the night. This room is not large. You can reach the opposite wall without standing. Your breath fogs faintly, because warmth costs money and morning fires are for those who can afford them. Outside, the day has already begun without waiting for you. You pull on yesterday's clothes because most people do. Linen shirts are aired, not washed daily. Wool keeps smells as souvenirs. A mainstream fact historians agree on is that even modest London households often shared rooms and beds, sometimes with strangers, simply because space was scarce and rent relentless. The city is swelling, fed by rural migrants and ambition, and every spare corner has become a place to sleep. As you dress, you hear movement beyond the door, footsteps on stairs, polished by thousands of anxious descents. You step outside into a shared passage. The floorboards dip, the walls lean in like tired listeners. Someone nearby empties a chamber pot, and although you do not see it, you hear the unmistakable splash somewhere below. The smell follows a second later. A quirky tidbit from the time is that some Londoners sincerely believe strong odour could protect you from disease, which meant perfumemas and vinegar sellers thrived during outbreaks. Historians still argue whether this belief actually reduced infection through behaviour changes or simply made people feel less helpless. Down on the street, the air hits you fully. It is louder now. Vendors are already calling out their cries, stretched and melodic, advertising milk bread, hot pies of questionable origin. Horses stamp and snort, leaving warm reminders on the ground that no one is in a hurry to clean. You walk carefully, not just to avoid mud, but because the street itself is uneven patched and reworked over centuries. Cobblestones tilt like bad teeth. You learn quickly to watch where you place your feet. London wakes in layers. First the workers, then the shops, then the better-dressed figures who slept longer, or at least pretended they did. You pass a coffee house where men cluster inside, already arguing. Coffee is still new enough to feel exciting and dangerous enough that some claim it overheats the brain. A mainstream fact is that these coffee houses function as early information hubs where news, gossip, and business mixed freely. You do not go in yet. The smell alone is sharp and bitter, and you are still adjusting. Sound fills the gaps between buildings. Bells mark not just time but authority. Church market warning celebration. You cannot always tell. Somewhere a child cries, then stops abruptly. Somewhere else laughter bursts out and dies just as fast. You notice how close everything is. Privacy is a modern luxury, and you do not have it here. As you walk, you become aware of how the city presses inward. Buildings rise higher than they should. Stories stacked like risky promises. Upper floors jut out over the street, nearly touching their neighbours. This is not aesthetic whim, it is economic necessity. More space above means more rent below. Historians still debate how much this architectural crowding contributed to fires and disease versus simply reflecting a city growing faster than its planning. You pause near a pump. One of the public water sources people gather with buckets and patience and sharp-tongued. Water here is precious but not always safe. A quirky detail often overlooked is that some Londoners preferred weak beer to water for breakfast, believing it healthier. They were not entirely wrong. Brewing killed certain impurities. You watch as a woman fills her pail, glances around, and then uses a corner of her apron to wipe her face. Washing is selective. Time and water are rationed carefully. The morning light strengthens. It reveals more than it improves. You see grime work deep into stone, soot tracing the outlines of windows. Posters pasted over posters until the walls resemble skin with too many scars. Notices about lost items, public punishments, new plays, miraculous cures. You read none of them closely, but they register a constant reminder that life here is public, precarious, and always watched. You realise something quietly unsettling. No one looks surprised by any of this. This is normal. The smells, the noise, the closeness. Londoners adapt quickly because they must. Your modern instincts want distance, cleanliness, silence. Here, survival means blending in, keeping pace, and not lingering too long on discomfort. As the morning advances, the city grows busier, not brighter. Shadows shift, but never fully retreat. You feel yourself becoming part of the flow, another body moving through narrow channels of routine. There is no dramatic moment where the day officially begins. It simply continues pulling you with it. And as you walk on shoulders brushing stranger shoes already damp, you understand that everyday life here is not about spectacle. It is about endurance, about waking up again and again to a city that demands your attention before it offers anything in return. You breathe carefully, step forward, and let London carry you deeper. You keep moving, and almost without noticing, the street narrows and lifts you into the private world of rooms, rents, and roofs. London's houses do not invite you in. They tolerate you. A doorway opens briefly, and you glimpse a staircase so steep. It feels like a ladder pretending to be polite. This is where most lives actually unfold, not in grand streets, but stacked vertically, one breath above another. You step into a lodging house, the kind that advertises a bed by the week, sometimes by the night. The air inside is warmer, heavier, layered with human presence. Wood cacks under your weight, announcing you to everyone else. Privacy here is a curtain if you are lucky. A mainstream historical fact is that by the early 1700s, London rents consumed a large portion of wages for working people, forcing many to take in lodges or share rooms with unrelated families. Space is currency, and nobody has enough. The room you imagine yourself in has low ceilings and walls stained darker near the corners where smoke and damp like to settle. There is a small window, but it opens reluctantly and only part way. Glass is expensive, so the panes are tiny and uneven, set into lead like fragile promises. You run a hand along the sill and feel grit that never quite disappears. Outside noise filters in constantly. Inside noise never really leaves. Beds dominate the space. They are not just for sleeping. They are for sitting, mending, eating, sometimes working. The mattress is stuffed with whatever could be spared. Straw rags, old wool, occasionally feathers if fortune smiled. A quirky tidbit that survives in records is that bedbugs were so common they were sometimes referred to casually, almost affectionately, as part of household life. Some people believed rubbing the bed frame with herbs or even mouse skin could drive them away. Results were mixed. You notice how little furniture there is. A chest, a chair, maybe a small table if the room is generous. Everything serves multiple purposes because it has to. Clothing hangs from pegs doubling as insulation. Shoes sit near the door, caked with yesterday's street. The floor slopes slightly, the building settling into itself after decades of compromise. Historians still argue whether these structural oddities posed greater danger than benefit, or whether Londoners simply accepted risk as part of shelter. Now picture a different home just a few streets away. A merchant's house taller, wider, better lit here. Rooms have functions. A parlour, a dining space, separate sleeping chambers. Even here, though, servants sleep close by, often in attics or basement, always within call. The house smells cleaner, but never neutral. Wax food, damp wool, comfort exists, but it is relative. You climb upward because height matters. Upper floors are cheaper but colder. Heat rises, but so does wind. The higher you go, the more the building sways at night. Storms turn these houses into gently moving things, and you learn to trust the beams. Roofs leak. They always do. Buckets and bowls are placed with experience. Rain becomes another roommate. Rent day arrives with tension. Coins are counted and recounted. Agreements are informal, flexible, and sometimes cruel. Miss a payment and your belongings can be seized, or you can simply be locked out. There is no safety net waiting quietly in the background. A mainstream fact often noted is that London had a thriving second-hand furniture and clothing market, largely because people were constantly moving, downsizing, or being displaced. You imagine sharing this space with others, family, strangers, apprentices. Bodies fill the room at night, each breath warming the air slightly, each movement felt by everyone else. Sleep is shallow. Someone snores, someone coughs, someone whispers prayers into the dark. You learn to rest anyway. Exhaustion teaches quickly. In poorer districts, houses are subdivided again and again. A single large room becomes 3. A hallway becomes a sleeping space. Even cellars are rented despite damp that creeps into bones. A quirky detail from the period is that some cellar dwellers believed living underground kept them cooler in summer and safer from thieves. Historians still debate how much of this was optimism and how much was resignation dressed as wisdom. Light is precious indoors. Candles cost money. Windows help, but they steal heat and invite eyes. You choose when to see and when to conserve. Shadows become familiar companions. You learn the room by touch, the notch in the bedpost, the loose board near the door, the crack in the wall that leaks cold. Smell lingers longest. Cooking bodies, damp wood, old smoke. You become accustomed because you must. Visitors smell you before they see you, just as you smell them. Cleanliness exists, but it is negotiated daily against time, water, and cost. There is pride in a swept floor, in aired linens. Small victories matter all. As you leave the house again, stepping back into the street, you carry this knowledge with you. London is not just streets and crowds. It is rooms stacked like secrets, each holding lives compressed into tight breathing spaces. You feel the weight of roofs above you, the lives overhead and below, all balanced together. The city feels denser now, not just physically, but emotionally. Every doorway hides a story of rent paid or missed, of comfort earned or denied. You move on, aware that shelter here is never just shelter. It is survival measured in inches, shillings, and the thin line between inside and out. You step fully back into the street, and now the ground itself demands your attention. London underfoot is not something you glide across. You negotiate with it. The surface changes every few steps from rounded cobbles, slick with yesterday's rain, to packed earth churned soft by hooves and wheels. Your shoes already worn thin meat puddles that pretend to be shallow and then swallow your heel. Anyway, you learn quickly to test each step. The street tilts slightly toward the centre by design. A mainstream historical fact is that many London streets were shaped this way so waste and rainwater would run toward an open channel down the middle. That channel is not decorative. It carries everything you do not want to think about. You walk along the edges like everyone else, though carts force you inward at inconvenient moments. Traffic has no lanes, no signals, only habits and shouting. Carts roll through slowly, drivers standing rather than sitting, reins, loose voices, loud. Horses are everywhere, patient and dangerous in equal measure. You learn to read their moods by ear before you see them. A snort means stop. A stamp means step back. A sudden silence means trouble. Your feet feel every inconsistency. Stone shift, mud grips. Ice forms in winter in thin, treacherous sheets. There is no universal paving standard. Wealthier areas tend to have better maintained surfaces, but even their repairs are uneven. Historians still argue whether parish responsibility for street maintenance helped communities stay organised, or simply deepened inequalities between districts. You pass through a narrow lane where buildings lean so close they almost touch above your head. Light filters down reluctantly. Here the ground is darker, wetter, less forgiving. Water drips constantly from somewhere unseen. You smell it before you feel it. This is where refuse gathers, where boots sink deeper, where rats feel bold enough to dart across your path without apology. Shoes matter more than fashion would suggest. Thick soles protect you not just from cold and sharp stones, but from whatever else might be waiting. A quirky tidbit from the period is that cobblers were often in constant demand because shoes wore out astonishingly fast in London conditions. Some people even carried spare soles to be stitched on later, like a practical form of hope. You hear the street before you see it fully. Cries overlap. Milk sellers call out their route. Bellmen announce lost items or warnings. Children run messages barefoot, sometimes quick and fearless. A dog barks, then another answers. The sound bounces between walls, magnified, distorted. Silence feels suspicious here. As you walk, you notice how everyone adapts their movement. People lift their hems slightly. Men swing their arms wide to keep balance. You watch a woman step carefully around a pile that nobody wants to name. Then continue without comment. This is skill learnt early. Londoners do not complain about the street. They master it. Crossing is an event. You wait, judge distance, step out, then retreat as a cart lurches closer than expected. There is no shame in hesitation. Survival is more important than pride. You feel the vibration through your feet before you hear the wheels. Wood against stone has its own language. In busier areas, the street becomes a marketplace, as much as a pathway. Stalls creep outward. Goods spill onto the road. Barrels, baskets, cages, chickens cluck from wooden crates. Fish glisten on slabs already attracting flies. You weave through, adjusting your pace to the rhythm of trade. The ground here is slick with more than water. A mainstream fact often noted is that many streets were named after the trades that dominated them, reflecting how closely work and movement were intertwined. You feel that truth as you pass from the sharp smell of tanning to the sweet heaviness of baking. Each section of road tells you where you are long before a sign does. You stumble slightly and catch yourself against a wall. The stone is cold, damp, gritty. You wipe your hand on your coat without thinking. Everyone does. Historians still debate how much constant physical contact with the city shaped Londoners' immune systems and how much it simply spread illness faster. In quieter stretches, you notice the wear patterns, a stone polished smooth by centuries of feet, a groove carved by cartwheels following the same path day after day. The street remembers everyone. It holds their weight long after they are gone. You feel small but also oddly connected. At intersections, chaos briefly reigns. Voices rise. Whips crack lightly, more sound than force. Someone swears, then laughs. Disputes flare and fade. There is an unspoken understanding that no one owns the road. You borrow it carefully and move on. You think about rain. When it comes, everything changes. Mud deepens, channels overflow, shoes become heavy each step and effort. Yet people still move, work still calls. The street does not pause for weather. Neither do you. As the day progresses, the surface dries unevenly. Some patches harden, others remain slick. You adjust constantly. It is exhausting, this constant awareness. But it becomes background noise. Your body learns before your mind does. By now, your feet ache. Not sharply but persistently. It is a reminder that walking is not leisure here. It is labour. You walk because you must, because everything worth doing lies somewhere beyond where you stand. As you continue, you realise that the street is not just a way through the city. It is the city. It carries its waste, its trade, its arguments, its accidents. Every step you take is a negotiation with history, gravity, and whatever the last cart left behind. And still, you keep going carefully, attentively, because in London, the ground itself is part of daily life, and learning to walk it is the first real skill the city teaches you. As you keep moving, the city begins to announce itself less through sight and more through smell. You notice it slowly, the way a sensation becomes obvious, only once it is everywhere. London in the 1700s does not have a single scent. It has layers stacked and drifting, shifting as you walk. You breathe shallowly at first, then deeper because avoiding it entirely is impossible. Near the river, the air grows sharp and briny mixed with rot. The Thames is busy, crowded with boats, waste and industry. Tannery, slaughterhouses and workshops all lean toward the water, using it as both resource and disposal. Contemporary accounts agree that the river often ran thick with refugees, especially in warmer months. You catch a whiff that makes your eyes water, then another that smells almost sweet in comparison. A few streets inland, smoke takes over, coal fires burn constantly, leaving soot on window ledges and in lungs. The smell is dry, bitter, familiar to everyone here. It clings to clothes and hair, marking you as part of the city. Some visitors complain loudly about it. Londoners shrug. Smoke means warmth, food and work. Without it, the city would freeze. Food scents cut through the heavier odour and flashes. Fresh bread yeasty and comforting, roasting meat from a cook shop, rich and mouth-watering. Fried fish oily and lingering. These smells draw people like invisible strings. You feel hunger stir even when you are not sure what you are hungry for. Smell here is advertising. Then there are the human smells. Sweat, unwashed bodies, damp wool, old leather. Crowds concentrate them. Narrow lanes trap them. You pass close enough to others that scent becomes a form of introduction. You know who works hard, who sleeps indoors, who has been out since dawn. This is not judgment. It is information. One overlooked detail from the period is that many households kept bowls of herbs or flowers, not just for decoration, but to soften indoor air. Lavender, rosemary, dried rose petals. Some believe these scents could ward off sickness. Modern historians continue to question whether such practices had any measurable health effect, or whether they simply made cramped spaces more bearable. Waste smells are impossible to ignore. Chamber pots are emptied daily, sometimes carelessly. Open drains carry what they can. Piles gather where they should not. You learn to recognize the warning signs before you step too close. The smell arrives first, thick and unmistakable. You adjust your path without thinking like everyone else. In markets, scents collide. Blood from butcher stalls, fish laid out on ice that barely lasts. Fruit beginning to soften in the heat. Spices imported at great cost release. Sharp exotic notes that cut through everything else. Cinnamon, cloves, pepper, these are luxury smells. And you notice how people pause when they pass. Breathing in, slowly savouring. The city smells different by time of day. Morning carries yesterday with it. Midday blends food and heat. Evening brings smoke and dampness at night. When fires burn lower and streets quiet, some odour fade while others grow stronger. You sense them even in the dark. Some writers of the era describe London as overwhelming to the senses, but smell received special attention. It was thought to carry danger. Miasma bad air was blamed for disease. Whether this belief delayed more accurate understandings of illness or encouraged better ventilation is still debated among scholars. You notice how people respond. Scarves lifted to noses, vinegar dabbed onto cloth, perfumed pomanders held discreetly. A quirky survival habit is that some carried small citrus fruits, pricking them with cloves to create a portable scent shield. It did not stop the city, but it offered comfort. Your own clothes absorb everything. Wool is generous that way. By now you smell like London, whether you want to or not. You become less aware of it, which is perhaps the most unsettling change. What shocked you an hour ago now feels ordinary. As you walk on, you realise smell here is not just background. It guides movement, marks class signals, danger, and promises reward. It tells you where you are and what is happening before you see it. In a city, this crowded scent becomes another language. You breathe in carefully, then let it out slowly. The air is never clean, but it is alive. And as you grow accustomed to it, you understand that to live in London is to accept its smells as part of yourself. You do not fight them, you move with them, letting the city announce itself breath by breath. As you continue on, you begin to notice something else as the day wears on. For all the smells and grime people here do try to clean themselves, just not in the way you might expect. Water exists, but it is effort. It must be carried, heated, guarded. Every drop has a purpose, and washing competes with cooking, drinking, and work. You stop near a public pump again, watching the routine more closely. Now buckets are filled, balanced, hauled away with practiced movements. A commonly accepted reality of the time is that most Londoners did not have running water in their homes, relying instead on pumps or water carriers. This shapes everything. You do not wash casually when water costs sweat and coin. Personal washing happens in pieces. Faces, hands, maybe feet. If the day has been bad, a bowl, a cloth, a small amount of soap if available. Full immersion is rare. Bathing tubs exist, but they are shared, rented, or reserved for the wealthy. There is also suspicion. Many people believe frequent bathing weakens the body by opening the pores too much. Scholars continue to debate how much this belief affected health outcomes, versus simply reflecting limited resources. Laundry is an event. Clothes are soaked, beaten, scrubbed, rinsed. It takes time and strength. Women, children, and servants do most of it. You hear the slap of wet fabric against stone near the river. Steady rhythm. Soap is harsh. Often homemade with lye. It cleans, but it also bites. Hands crack and re-en. You smell it before you see it sharp and alkaline. Homes are swept more than washed. Dirt is removed dry whenever possible. Floors are brushed, ashes collected, crumbs cleared. Water inside is risky. Too much damp invites rot and mould. A curious detail from the period is that rushes or straw were sometimes spread on floors to absorb dirt and moisture changed only. Historians still question how often this really happened in urban homes versus rural ones, but the idea persists. You notice people cleaning in public. A woman scrubs a doorstep with sand. A shopkeeper wipes a counter again and again. Cleanliness here is visible performative. It tells others you are respectable, or at least trying to be. The smell of vinegar hangs in the air, used as a general cleaner and supposed purifier. Your own body feels sticky by now. Sweat mixes with soot. You wipe your face with your sleeve without thinking. Everyone does. Hands are cleaned more often than anything else, especially before eating. Bread is handled directly torn, shared. Dirty hands are noticed. Water quality worries everyone. Some pumps are better than others. Some are avoided. Rumours travel fast. A pump blamed for sickness can lose its users overnight. A little-known practice is that some households added small amounts of alcohol to water, believing it made it safer. Whether this helped or simply masked taste remains a point of discussion among modern researchers. Public baths exist, but they are social spaces as much as hygienic ones. They can be noisy, gossipy, even risky. Privacy is minimal. Modesty is flexible. You imagine the steam, the laughter, the caution. Not everyone feels welcome there. Children are wiped clean more often than adults. At least when very young dirt on a child suggests neglect. Dirt on an adult suggests work. The difference matters. You see mothers dampening cloth, smoothing hair, trying to keep some order in a city that resists it. By evening, water is scarce again. Fires die down. Heating more water feels extravagant. You make do, you change linen if you have it. You air what you cannot wash. Windows are opened briefly, then are shut against the cold. You realize cleanliness here is not about perfection. It is about management, keeping dirt at bay just enough to stay healthy, respectable, and functional. People know their limits. They push where they can, retreat where they must. As you move on, you carry this understanding with you. London is dirty, yes, but not careless. Effort is everywhere, even when results fall short. Washing, wiping, sweeping, small acts repeated daily in a city. This crowded cleanliness is not an ideal. It is a negotiation quietly worked out one bucket at a time. By the time hunger settles in, it does so without ceremony. Your stomach does not rumble loudly. It simply reminds you that food is a regular concern here, not an occasional pleasure. Eating in 18th century London follows the rhythms of work, daylight, and money. Meals are simple, filling when possible, and rarely wasted. You find yourself near a baker's shop, drawn by warmth and smell. Bread is the backbone of most diets, and its quality matters deeply. Dark loaves made from mixed grains are common, heavier, and more filling than the pale white bread favoured by those with means. Records from the period show that fluctuations in bread price cause real fear, sometimes unrest because bread is survival. You buy a small loaf and tear off a piece. The crust firm, the inside dense. AE appears as naturally as bread, weak, cloudy, and consumed throughout the day, is safer than much of the water and considered nourishing. You notice how even children drink it in small amounts. A less discussed habit is that some households flavoured their ale with herbs or spices, creating mild medicinal brews believed to steady the body. Whether these had real effects or simply comforted the drinker remains an open question among historians. Meat is not absent, but it is uneven. For some, it is daily. For others occasional, for many, it is stretched. Stews and pies make small portions go further. You pass a cook shop where pots simmer continuously, feeding those who cannot cook at home. The smell is rich and tempting. You do not ask too closely what cup went in, few do. Markets shape what you eat. Fish arrives fresh from the river or coast, sold quickly before it turns. Vegetables change with season. Roots keep longer. Greens wilt fast. You learn to eat what is available, not what you prefer. A curious note from the time is that oysters were cheap and abundant, sold on the street as fast food for the poor. Piles of shells lined certain roads. Scholars still discuss how this abundance disappeared so completely in later centuries. Sugar is present, but not innocent. It sweetens tea porridge and small treats, but it carries the weight of distant labour and suffering. You do not dwell on it. Few here do. Taste often outruns ethics when hunger is involved. Meals are eaten quickly, standing, walking, shared. A piece of cheese, an onion, a chunk of bread. You bite, chew, move on. Tables exist, but not for everyone. Time matters. Work waits, in better homes. Meals follow structure, breakfast light, dinner heavy and early by modern standards. Supper small, courses appear. Table manners are observed. Even then, food is practical before it is decorative. Waste is frowned upon. Leftovers are planned. You notice how food smells travel far. A roasting joint announces itself to the street. People slow as they pass. Some stop just to breathe it in. Hunger sharpens senses. It also sharpens envy. But quietly, illness changes appetite. When people fall sick, food becomes medicine, or is refused altogether. Broths gruel small sips. A detail noted in personal diaries is that certain foods were avoided during illness, because they were thought to inflame the blood. Whether these choices helped or harmed recovery is still debated. By afternoon, hunger returns. You eat again smaller. This time food here is about maintaining strength. Not indulgence, treats exist, but they are noticed because they are rare. A sweet bun, a sugared nut, a hot pie bought with a spare coin. As evening approaches, fires are lit again, and smells shift. Cooking marks the transition from work to rest. Families gather where they can. Food signals a pause, however brief. You finish your meal and wipe your hands, already thinking about the next. Eating in London is never fully satisfied. It is a cycle as constant as walking the streets. And as you move on, you carry the taste of bread and ale with you. A reminder that survival here is built on simple things repeated daily without much ceremony, but with great importance. You drift naturally toward the markets because almost everyone does at some point in the day. Money, food, gossip, and people all circulate there together. Even if you have nothing to buy, you come to look, to listen, to feel part of the movement. London's markets are not tidy rows. They spill creep and reshape the streets around them. Stalls cluster wherever space allows. Wooden boards laid across barrels become counters. Baskets line the ground. Sellers shout. Prices praise quality worn of scarcity. Coins pass from hand to hand, warm and worn smooth. Everyday transactions rely on trust as much as metal. Small change is precious. A penny matters. Account books from the time reveal that many Londoners lived partly on credit, settling up weekly or monthly when wages arrived. You see this play out quietly. A nod, a name spoken, a mark made on a slate. Credit binds neighbours together, and when it breaks, so do relationships. You stop at a vegetable seller. The produce is uneven, some fresh, some tired. You choose carefully. A less celebrated detail is that haggling is expected, but restrained. Push too hard and you earn a reputation, pay too easily and you look foolish. The exchange is almost social, a brief performance both sides understand. Fishmongers work fast, smell tells you why. They gut clean and sell in one motion. Customers judge quality with eyes and fingers, not sentiment. Meat stalls draw flies. Sellers wave them away constantly, more habit than hope. You notice how speed equals safety coins. Clink, silver, copper, occasionally gold. Paper notes exist, but many distrust them. Forgery is a fear. So is theft. You keep your purse, close fingers resting on it without thinking. Pickpockets blend into the crowd easily. People learn to feel the absence of weight before they feel anger. An unusual practice worth noting is that some sellers accepted goods instead of money, especially during shortages. A chicken traded for vegetables, labour promised for credit. Barter survives alongside coin-filling gaps when cash runs dry. Economic historians continue to debate how widespread this really was in London compared to smaller towns. Markets are also information hubs. News travels faster here than anywhere else. You hear about a fire, a hanging, a scandal, all while choosing apples. Rumour and fact tangle together. You file things away, unsure what to believe. Everyone does, weights and measures vary. Disputes flare, a scale is nudged. A finger presses the pan. Laws exist. But enforcement depends on who is watching. Some markets have officials. Others rely on reputation alone. You watch a customer argue briefly, then give up. Time costs money. Street sellers move constantly. They know where crowds gather and when hot food appears near work sites, sweet things near theatres. Their voices rise and fall like a tide. You realise that shopping here is not a separate task. It had woven into walking, working, living. Women are everywhere in the markets, selling, buying, managing household needs. Their presence is practical, confident. Market space offers a degree of independence, not always found elsewhere. Social historians remain divided on how empowering this really was, but the visibility is undeniable. As the day wears on, prices shift, food grows cheaper as freshness fades. Buyers wait, sellers watch the sky, the crowd, the clock. Nothing here is static, the market breathes. You make your purchases modest and necessary. You tuck them away and move on, already aware that tomorrow you will return. Markets are not occasional events. They're daily anchors shaping diet, economy, and connection. As you step back into the flow of the street, the sounds of bargaining fade behind you, coins still warm in your pocket, hands still smelling faintly of produce. You carry with you the sense that in London survival is not solitary. It is negotiated face to face, one small exchange at a time. Work finds you whether you look for it or not. In London, labour is the shape of the day, bending everything else around it. From early morning, bodies move with purpose, tools in hand, minds already counting hours. There is little separation between living and working. For many, they happen in the same place, sometimes the same room. You follow a labourer as he shoulders a load heavier than comfort would advise. His pace is steady, economical. He cannot afford wasted motion. Long hours are normal sunrise to sunset, and often beyond. Surviving pay records show that many trades demanded 6 days a week at minimum, with Sunday offering rest more in theory than in practice. Shops open early. Apprentices sweep thresholds, arrange goods, fetch water. Masters supervise with one eye on the street, another on profit. Mistakes are corrected sharply. Learning happens through repetition and correction, not gentle instruction. You feel the pressure to get it right, because errors cost time and time costs money. Servants work before anyone else wakes, and after everyone else sleeps. You glimpse them carrying trays, scrubbing floors, standing quietly against walls. Their labour is constant but designed to be invisible household manuals from the era outline duties in exhausting detail, suggesting a level of expectation that left little room for rest. Whether servants found small freedoms within this structure is something historians continue to examine. Workshops are loud, hot and crowded. You step inside one and feel heat wrap around you immediately. Hammers ring, sawdust floats in the air. Conversation happens in shouts or gestures. Skilled hands move quickly, confidently. Pride exists here, even when pay does not reflect it. Craft identity matters. Children work too. You see them running messages, turning spits, carrying water. Childhood blends into labour without ceremony. Some reformers of the time worried about this, while others saw it as necessary training. Modern scholars still disagree about how harmful this early work truly was, balancing economic necessity against long-term impact. Women's labour fills every gap: paid, unpaid, acknowledged, ignored. Seamstresses bend over work late into the night. Laundresses haul and scrub until arms ache. Market women rise early and negotiate fiercely. Their work supports households and economies even when records fail to credit them fully. Day labourers gather at known spots waiting for hire. Some are chosen quickly, others wait all morning, then drift away. The uncertainty is constant. A lesser-known aspect of this system is how reputation travels. A reliable worker is remembered, a troublesome one is avoided. Word moves faster than paper, breaks are short, meals are eaten standing, leaning, working. You feel hunger but push through. Fatigue settles into muscles like a familiar weight. People learn to carry it. Complaining wastes energy. Danger is part of the job. Falls, cuts, crushed fingers. There is no compensation waiting quietly. Injury can end a livelihood overnight. Mutual aid exists informally among neighbours and guilds, but it is limited. Whether this network's provided meaningful security remains a point of debate among economic historians. As afternoon slides toward evening, pace does not slow. If anything, it tightens. Tasks must be finished, orders completed. Light fades quickly indoors. Candles are lit sparingly, eyes strain, mistakes increase. You notice how work shapes posture, backs bent, hands thickened, faces set in expressions learned over years. Labour leaves marks that no clothing can hide. It also creates identity. People know who they are by what they do. When the day finally loosens its grip, there is no dramatic release. Tools are set down, aprons removed, doors closed. Exhaustion follows you home. Work remains in the body, humming quietly. As you walk on, you understand that London's energy comes from this constant effort. Every loaf, every brick, every service rests on long hours and tired hands. The city does not thank its workers. It relies on them. And tomorrow, without pause, it will ask again. As the day carries on, you begin to notice how much of it rests quietly, on women's shoulders, not announced, not always recorded, but present everywhere. Women move through London with purpose, balancing expectation and necessity in every step. Their days begin early and end late, shaped by work that is often described as natural, rather than acknowledged as labour. You watch a woman managing a household with practiced efficiency. She organises food, money, children, and space, all within tight limits. Household guides from the period assume women will handle these tasks, outlining duties in careful detail from budgeting to discipline. These books rarely ask whether the work is easy. They simply assume it will be done. Many women earn wages: seamstresses, washerwomen, sellers, brewers, midwives. Their work is often paid less than men's, even when skill and effort match. Surviving wage lists show clear disparities justified at the time by ideas about dependency and strength. Yet many households rely on women's income to survive at all. Marriage shapes daily life strongly, but is not the only path. Widow, single women and wives, separated by circumstance, all carve out lives of their own. Some run shops, some take in lodges, some work quietly behind the scenes. An often overlooked detail is how many small businesses listed under a man's name were actually managed day to day by women. Economic historians continue to debate how visible this labour truly was. Clothing reflects both constraint and identity. Stay shape, posture and movement limiting speed, but signalling respectability. You feel how difficult certain tasks become while tightly laced. Yet many women work regardless. Practicality and appearance are negotiated constantly. Reputation matters, social expectations press heavily, behaviour is watched, voice is judged. A woman alone in certain spaces attracts comment. Yet markets, wells, and doorsteps become informal networks where news and support circulate. Conversation happens quickly, efficiently between tasks. These connections sustain more than they entertain. Motherhood is common but never simple. Childbirth is dangerous. Survival is uncertain. Women rely on other women during these moments. Midwives hold significant trust and authority. Some medical writers of the time criticised their methods, while others defended them fiercely. Debate continues about how medicalisation later altered women's autonomy in these spaces. Leisure is scarce but not absent. Small moments appear, a shared laugh, a song while working, a pause at a doorway. These not recorded in ledgers, but they matter. They soften long days. You notice how women navigate public space with awareness. Eyes forward, pace steady, purpose clear. Safety is a concern, but withdrawal is not an option. Life must be lived in full view. As evening approaches, women's work does not slow. Meals are prepared, clothes mended, children settled, accounts reviewed. The home shifts, but effort continues. Fatigue becomes background noise. You realise that London's daily rhythm would collapse without this constant, largely uncelebrated labour. The city runs on it quietly and persistently. As you move on, you carry the sense that women's daily worlds are not separate from the city. They are woven into it, holding it together, one task at a time. Children are everywhere, once you start noticing them. Not tucked away in special places, not shielded from the city, but woven directly into its daily movement. You step around them, nearly collide with them, hear them before you see them. London does not pause for childhood. It absorbs it. A small boy darts past you carrying a bundle nearly as large as his torso. He moves with confidence born of repetition. Many children begin working as soon as they're able to contribute, sometimes as young as 5 or 6 parish records and apprenticeship agreements. Make this clear: learning here happens through doing, not through explanation. Play exists, but it fits into the cracks. You see children chasing each other through alleys using hoop sticks. Bits of string games erupt and vanish quickly, interrupted by errands or shouted instructions. The street is both playground and workplace. This closeness teaches awareness early. You notice how quickly they judge space and danger. Schooling is uneven. Some children attend charity schools or small private classes. Many do not. Literacy rates rise slowly during this period, but access depends heavily on family circumstance. Whether early labour hindered education significantly or simply replaced it with different skills remains a topic of ongoing discussion among social historians. Clothing marks age and class clearly. Children wear simplified versions of adult dress. There is no distinct fashion of childhood. Practicality comes first. Clothes are mended, repeatedly passed down, reshaped. You see a sleeve, let-out hem dropped a shoe, stuffed to fit a growing foot. Work varies. Some children assist in family trades. Others are sent out as apprentices, sometimes far from home. This separation can be abrupt. Agreements bind them for years. For some, this offers stability and skill. For others, it brings hardship. Personal letters from the time show both outcomes, making general judgment difficult. You notice how children navigate adults they speak when needed. Listen always. Respect is learned early, so is caution. Punishment is swift by modern standards. Discipline is considered essential preparation for adulthood, yet affection appears too. A hand on a head, a shared laugh, a small treat saved for later. Health is fragile. Childhood illness is common, often fatal. Families expect loss even as they hope for survival. This reality shapes attachment. Love exists, but it is tempered by experience. How this emotional balance affected long-term relationships is something researchers continue to explore. Some children live on the streets entirely orphaned, abandoned, or escaped from difficult situations. They survive through odd jobs, begging, theft. Their presence is noted in court records and moral tracts. Responses vary from sympathy to fear. Solutions are proposed endlessly, rarely enacted fully. As evening comes, children drift home or cluster near familiar doorways. They carry water, fetch food, mind siblings. The day has not been light for them, but it has been normal. You sense how quickly childhood ends here, not through ceremony, but through necessity, watching them. You understand that growing up in London means learning the city before learning yourself. Children absorb its rhythms, dangers, and demands instinctively. There is little room for innocence as a protected state. Instead, there is competence, resilience, and early responsibility. As you move on, their voices fade behind you, replaced by the deeper sounds of the evening. But the impression lingers. Childhood here is not hidden or idealized. It is visible, practical, and shaped by the same pressures as everything else. In London, you grow up fast because the city expects you to. As daylight thins, you realize the city never truly grows quiet. Sound replaces sight as your main guide. London hums, rattles, shouts, and sighs at every hour. Even when you pause, noise presses in, layered and persistent like breath. Church bells dominate first. They mark hours, services, warning celebrations. Each parish has its own voice, and together they create a constant conversation overhead. Diaries from the period often complain about bells interrupting sleep, prayer, or thought, yet few suggest silencing them. Bells mean order. Without them, time itself would feel loose. Street cries follow predictable patterns. Vendors sing out their goods with practiced melodies. You recognize some without seeing the seller. Hot pies, fresh milk, old clothes bought and sold. These cries serve as mobile signposts guiding customers through sound. Many Londoners navigate partly by ear, especially in crowded or foggy conditions. Animals contribute generously. Horses stamp, snort, and whinny. Dogs bark at nothing and everything. Chickens protest from baskets. Pigs squeal as they are driven through streets towards slaughter. Livestock within city limits is normal, and its noise is accepted as the price of fresh food. Carts dominate the deeper register. Wooden wheels grind against stone, echoing between buildings. The sound carries far, warning pedestrians before danger appears. You feel vibrations through your feet and chest. Night carts used for less pleasant tasks move more quietly, but their presence is known anyway. Human voices fill every gap. Arguments flare, laughter bursts. Instructions are shouted across distances that feel unnecessary but effective. In crowded spaces, quiet speech is useless. You learn to project or be ignored. This shapes speech itself, making it sharper, louder, more direct. Inside homes, sound does not stop. Walls are thin. You hear neighbours cough, pray, quarrel, sing. Privacy is auditory illusion. Some people find comfort in this constant presence. Others find it exhausting. Personal letters reveal both reactions, suggesting varied tolerance rather than universal acceptance. At night, the city shifts but does not rest. Footsteps echo more clearly. A watchman calls out the hour and the weather, his voice steady and reassuring. This practice is meant to deter crime and mark time. Whether it truly improved safety or simply offered comfort is still debated by urban historians. Taverns grow louder as evening deepens. Music spills out along with arguments and stories. You hear fiddles, stamping feet, slurred songs. For some, this is release. For others, it is background noise endured daily. Fire sounds change too. Daytime crackles become evening murmurs. Hearths settle. Ash shifts softly. These quieter sounds signal the end of work, if not of activity. You notice how your own body responds, easing slightly as the pitch lowers. Sleep comes in pieces here. Noise wakes you, then lulls you again. people adapt, heavy sleepers are admired. Light sleepers endure. Earplugs do not exist. Acceptance does. As you continue walking, the soundscape wraps around you like a familiar coat. Loud, imperfect, alive. London announces itself, constantly unwilling to be ignored, and slowly, almost without realizing it, you stop wishing for silence. The noise becomes proof that the city is still breathing, and so are you. Moving through London means learning how to get from one place to another without expecting ease. Distance is measured less in miles than in effort. You rely first on your feet because most people do. Walking is the default, the skill everyone masters early. Shoes matter, pace matters, timing matters. You learn when to set out so you arrive before dark, before rain, before crowds swell too thick. Still, alternatives exist if you can afford them. Along the riverboats glide steadily, offering a smoother path through the city. The Thames is crowded but efficient. You watch watermen calling for passengers. Their voice is confident. Taking a boat costs money, but it saves time and energy. Many choose it when carrying goods or avoiding clogged streets. Court records and travel accounts show that river transport was often faster than land despite the smell and risk. You step onto a wharf and feel the boards flex underfoot. Boats bump gently, ropes creak, water laps against stone. The river smells different here. Sharper, heavier. You imagine boarding, sitting low, watching the city slide past. Bridges loom overhead, busy and noisy. Traffic crosses above while trade moves below. It feels layered like the city itself. On-land chairs offer another option. Sedan chairs carried by two men move briskly through narrow streets. They're enclosed, private and expensive. You watch one pass curtains drawn barer muscles straining. These are favoured by the wealthy or those wishing to avoid mud and attention. Some contemporaries complained that chairs blocked streets and endangered pedestrians. Whether they truly worsened congestion or simply made inequality more visible remains a matter of discussion among historians. Carts and wagons dominate goods transport. You give them space. Accidents happen quickly. Horses startle. Wheels slip. There is no formal traffic system. Only habit and shouted warnings. You learn to rid body language, animal behaviour sound. It becomes instinct for longer journeys. Coaches leave from inbound for other towns. Travel is slow and uncomfortable. Roads outside the city are rough-routed, sometimes dangerous. Yet people go anyway. Letters and diaries show both excitement and dread attached to travel, suggesting that movement itself carried emotional weight. You notice how social class shapes movement. The poor walk, the comfortable mix walking with water, the wealthy ride, or are carried. Movement is not just physical, it signals status. How you arrive matters almost as much as when, at night, travel changes. You carry a lantern or hire a link boy to guide you. Shadows deepen. Familiar streets feel different. You move more cautiously. Getting lost is easy. Signage is inconsistent. Memory guides you more than maps. A lesser-known detail is that some people timed journeys to coincide with street cleaning or market schedules, choosing routes based on smell and crowd flow rather than distance. This practical navigation is rarely recorded but quietly essential. As you reach your destination, legs tired, shoulders tense, you realise that getting around London is never passive. Every trip demands attention. Movement here is active participation in the city. You pause, catching your breath, and look back the way you came. Boats slide, chairs hurry, feet keep moving. London carries itself forward on all of them, and you move with it one careful journey at a time. Illness never feels far away here. Even when you feel well, the possibility sits quietly beside you, like a shadow that stretches longer in certain streets than others. Health in London is fragile, not because people are careless, but because the city asks more of the body than it can easily give. You pass someone coughing hard into a cloth shoulders, hunched. No one stares. Sickness is common enough to be unremarkable until it becomes severe. Fevers, infections, lingering pains are woven into daily life. Burial records and personal letters alike make it clear that people expect illness as part of living, not as an interruption to it. Homes do not protect you, much damp creeps into bones. Smoke irritates lungs. Crowding passes sickness from person to person with ease. Yet, people still work when they can. Rest is a luxury. Missing a day's labour can mean missing a meal. You feel this pressure everywhere, unspoken but constant. Remedies begin at home. Broths, herbs, pusses. Knowledge passes through families, not textbooks. What works for one is repeated. What fails is adjusted. Some treatments soothe more than they cure, but comfort has value. A lesser-known habit is that many believed emotional balance affected physical health, so calm was prescribed alongside medicine. Whether this belief improved recovery is something modern researchers continue to examine. Doctors exist, but they are not the first stop. They cost money and carry risk. Treatments can be aggressive, bleeding, purging strong substances. Some patients recover, some do not. Trust varies. You hear opinions shared freely, shaped by experience rather than theory. Hospitals are few and specialised. They're not places everyone wants to go. Admission often requires recommendation or proof of need. Conditions inside are crowded and strict. Care focuses on observation and basic support rather than comfort. The idea of hospitals as healing sanctuaries has not yet taken hold. Public health as a concept is forming slowly. Clean streets, fresh air, and order are discussed in pamphlets and sermons. Whether authorities truly understand the causes of disease or are simply reacting to fear remains an open question in historical study. Epidemics leave deep impressions. Even between outbreaks, memory lingers. People change behaviour subtly, avoiding certain areas, burning herbs, carrying charms. These actions reflect a desire for control in a city that offers little. You notice how illness affects social life. Neighbours step in when someone is bedridden. Food appears quietly. Children are watched. Community fills gaps where formal care does not reach. These networks matter more than institutions. As evening comes, aches make themselves known. Feet throb, backs stiffen. You stretch, press, ignore. Pain is familiar. It does not always signal danger. Learning the difference between discomfort and threat is part of survival. You move on aware that health here is not a stable state. It is a balance maintained daily through habit, luck and care. London does not promise wellness. It offers endurance. And as you continue, you carry that knowledge with you, careful but not fearful, because fear itself is thought to weaken the body. You breathe steadily, step forward, and let the city hold you as best it can. When illness grows serious, you are drawn toward people who claim answers. London is full of them. Some wear respectability, like a well-pressed coat. Others rely on confidence alone. Healing here is not a single path, but a crowded crossroads. And you stand in the middle listening. You imagine stepping into a physician's rooms. Shelves line the walls, crowded with jars, books, instruments. The doctor listens, carefully asks questions about your humours, your sleep, your appetite. Medical training exists rooted in ancient texts and university learning. Case notes from the period show careful observation and genuine effort, even when outcomes disappoint. Knowledge is sincere if incomplete. Treatment often aims to restore balance. Bloodletting is common, as is purging. These methods feel harsh, yet they are widely accepted. Many patients expect them. Refusing treatment can be seen as stubborn or foolish. At the same time, private letters reveal doubt and fear, suggesting that trust in medicine is never absolute. Surgeons occupy a different space. Their work is practical physical, setting bones, treating wounds, removing growths. They learn through hands and repetition. Their reputation depends on results. You hear stories of skill passed along by word of mouth, building loyalty without formal credentials. Then there are the others, the sellers of powders, drops, elixir. They set up in markets, taverns, busy streets. Their language is bold, their promise is generous. One lesser-known detail is how some of these practitioners carefully observed patients and adjusted mixtures over time, blurring the line between fraud and folk science. Historians still discuss where exactly that line should be drawn. Pamphlets advertise cures for everything from toothache to melancholy. You see them pasted on walls, handed out freely. The language is persuasive, urgent, fear sells, hope sells faster. Regulation exists, but enforcement is uneven. People choose based on cost, reputation, and desperation. Midwives continue to hold trust, especially among women. Their knowledge comes from experience passed down through generations. Medical men sometimes criticize them publicly, yet rely on their skill privately. Records from court cases and parish registers suggest this relationship is complex, cooperative, and competitive at once. Hospitals provide limited intervention. They are places of discipline as much as care. Patients follow strict rules. Recovery is uncertain. Some enter and leave improved, others do not leave at all. How effective these institutions were compared to home care remains a subject of ongoing inquiry. You notice how conversation shapes medicine. Neighbours recommend remedies, families share successes. Failure travels quietly. Experience outweighs theory in most decisions. People trust what they have seen work before. As evening settles, you pass a man hawking a cure with theatrical flair. A small crowd gathers, coins change hands. You cannot tell who will benefit and who will not. Neither can they truly. You move on with a clearer sense of the medical world here. It is crowded, imperfect, and deeply human. People search for relief wherever they can find it. Some find it, some do not. And in this city, hope itself becomes a kind of medicine taken daily in whatever form feels safest. As daylight begins to soften, another awareness settles in quietly. You've been alert all day, but now caution sharpens. Crime is not a separate world in London. It runs alongside daily life, close enough to brush your sleeve. You feel it in the way people watch each other and how hands hover near pockets, without thinking. Theft is common, expected, even not dramatic, not always violent. A missing handkerchief, a lighter purse, a loaf gone from a basket. Court records from the period show that petty theft makes up the bulk of reported crime, driven less by malice than by need. Still, knowing this does not make loss easier. You adjust your pace in crowded areas. Narrow lanes feel different now. You notice who walks too close, who lingers just behind you. Pickpockets work in pairs or groups. One distracts, another lifts. By the time you realise they're gone, people learn to carry money in several places or to keep it sewn into clothing. Violence exists, but it is uneven. Fights break out in taverns, market streets. Alcohol loosens tempers, insults escalate quickly. Yet many disputes end with words, not blows. You sense an unspoken understanding of limits. Serious violence draws attention, and attention brings consequences. Night amplifies risk. Darkness offers cover. Street lighting is limited and inconsistent. Oil lamps flicker at intervals. Leaving long stretches in shadow, you feel exposed crossing them. Some hire link boys to guide them with lanterns. Others travel in groups. Fear shapes movement. Fraud is quieter. False weights, short measures, counterfeit goods, forged notes. These crimes require patience and skill rather than speed. Victims often realise too late. Economic historians note that trust underpins trade here, and fraud erodes it slowly like rot in a beam. Punishment hangs in the background. You see notices warning against crime listing penalties. Fear is meant to deter, but necessity often speaks louder. Whether harsh punishment reduce crime or simply hardened attitudes remains contested among scholars. Community plays a role. Neighbours watch out for each other selectively. Reputation matters. Known thieves are avoided. Known helpers are protected. Justice is personal before it is institutional. As you move on, you feel the tension ease slightly in familiar streets. Crime here is not chaos. It is patented, learned, anticipated. People adapt. You adapt. You keep walking alert, but steady, knowing that in London safety is not guaranteed, but awareness is your best defence. You said use more diverse expressions. Do not repeat them continuously in sections. A mainstream historical fact. Historians still argue whether a quirky tidbit. Scholars still debate. ChatGPT said understood. I'll continue to avoid any repeated stock phrasing and keep varying how I introduce established realities, lesser-known practices, and unresolved historical questions using fresh natural language each time. When you are ready, say continue, and I'll move on to section 16, staying strictly within the outline and all style rules. You do not have to look far to see how justice makes itself known. In London, punishment is meant to be visible. It steps into the street, onto platforms, into daily conversation. The law does not hide. It announces itself loudly, and often you come upon a crowd gathered in a square, not festive exactly, but alert. People stand shoulder to shoulder, some craning for a better view, others pretending not to care while clearly listening. Public punishment is a familiar interruption. Stocks and pillories occupy prominent spaces, remind us that order's enforced not just by rules, but by spectacle. Records from the Old Bailey show how frequently minor offences led to public humiliation rather than imprisonment. A person might be locked in place for hours, exposed to weather insults and thrown debris. Rotten food is common ammunition. You smell it before you see it. This is meant to correct behaviour through shame as much as pain. You watch faces in the crowd, some amused, some uncomfortable, some grimly satisfied. Children are present too, lifted for a better view. The lesson is meant for them as well. Discipline here is communal. Everyone participates whether they want to or not. Executions draw even larger crowds. They're announced in advance. Vendors sell food. People travel to attend. This is not hidden violence. It is framed as moral instruction. Sermons are preached. Final words are recorded. Whether these events truly discouraged crime or simply normalize brutality is a question that continues to divide historians. Punishment is not evenly applied. Status matters, connections matter. The wealthy often avoid the harshest outcomes through fines or influence. The poor feel the law more directly, more physically. You sense resentment beneath acceptance, a quiet understanding that justice here is not blind. Transportation is another sentence you hear discussed. Criminals sent across the sea removed rather than reformed. Families left behind. Some see this as mercy, others as exile worse than death. Letters from transported convicts reveal fear mixed with hope, suggesting the reality was complex. You notice how quickly the city absorbs punishment back into routine. Once the event ends, the crowd disperses. The square empties. Life resumes. The memory lingers but briefly. Tomorrow there will be another gathering, another lesson. As you walk away, the sound of the crowd fades. You carry with you the uneasy sense that justice here is not abstract. It is something you can trip over in the street, something you are meant to see and remember. London governs through visibility, and everyone, including you, learns to watch carefully as the noise of the crowd fades. Another rhythm begins to assert itself, quieter but steady. Faith moves through London like an undercurrent. You do not always see it, but you feel its pull shaping week's habits and expectations. Churches rise everywhere, their towers marking both spiritual and physical territory. You hear bells again, but these carry a different weight. Now they call people not to work or warning, but to pause. Sunday alters the city shops close or pretend to. Streets feel slower. Attendance at church is widely expected, reinforced by law as well as custom. Parish records show careful tracking of who belongs where, making church-going as much about order as belief. Inside, the air changes. It smells of wood, breath-damp stone. Sermons stretch long, moral, practical. You stand or sit for hours listening. Restlessness is common. Sleep happens quietly in pews. Children fidget. Faith here is less about ecstasy and more about endurance. Yet belief is not uniform. Doubt exists whispered rather than shouted. Some attend out of habit, others out of fear of judgment. Still others find real comfort in ritual and community. Personal writings from the time reveal a wide spectrum of belief, from deep devotion to quiet skepticism outside official worship. Faith spills into daily routines. Prayers are said before meals, before sleep, before risky work. Scripture appears on walls, and in conversation, moral language shapes how people interpret events. Illness becomes a test, fortune becomes a sign. London also holds many beliefs side by side. Protestant churches dominate, but Catholic worship continues quietly. Other religious communities exist on the margins, tolerated unevenly. How much religious diversity actually shaped daily interaction is something scholars continue to examine. Charity is tied closely to faith. Alms are given through parishes. Assistance is moralised. Worthiness is judged. Help comes with expectations. This system supports some and excludes others. Its effectiveness remains debated in historical study. As evening falls, church doors close, but faith does not retreat. It lingers in language, in judgment, in comfort, offered to the grieving. You realise that belief here is less about private feeling and more about shared structure. It organises time, behaviour, and belonging. You walk unaware that even when you are not thinking about faith, it is thinking about you quietly shaping the city's pulse as steadily as any bell. After long hours of work and watchfulness, you feel the city loosen its grip slightly. Not everyone rests, but many look for ways to escape. If only briefly, leisure in London is not about luxury. It is about relief. Moments stolen from obligation, shaped by what you can afford and where you belong. You drift toward a tavern drawn by warmth and sound. Inside, the air is thick with smoke and conversation. Benches line, rough tables, tankards clink. Stories travel faster than ale. Tavern servers, meeting places, newsrooms, confessionals, court testimonies and travel accounts alike show how central these spaces are to social life. Deals are made here, friendships tested, grievances aired, drink flows, but not always recklessly. Many pace themselves carefully. L is familiar comforting. Stronger spirits appear later in the evening. Songs rise, sometimes practiced, sometimes improvised. You listen, smiling faintly, letting the rhythm carry you. Music here is participatory. Silence feels stranger than joining in. The theatre offers a different kind of escape. Playhouses draw mixed crowds from labourers to the well-dressed. Performances are lively, loud, and interactive. Audiences comment freely. Fruit is thrown when displeased. Applause is earned, not assumed. Diaries from the time describe theatre-going as exhilarating and chaotic, closer to a public debate than a quiet show. You pass pleasure gardens on the edge of the city. Lanterns glow softly. Paths wind. Music drifts through the air. These spaces offer a controlled kind of freedom. People stroll, flirt, listen. Admission costs money, but the experience feels expansive. Some critics worried these gardens encouraged moral looseness. Others praised them as civilizing spaces. The argument never fully settles. Games appear everywhere. Cards, dice, bowls. Wagers are small or reckless depending on the player. Gambling offers hope and danger in equal measure. Some win enough to boast. Many lose quietly. Moralists condemn it. Players defend it. The city shrugs. Conversation itself is leisure. Gossip circulates. Opinions sharpen. News is debated long after it is heard. Coffee houses specialise in this, offering a sober alternative to taverns. Patrons sit for hours reading papers, arguing politics, trading information. Some observers credit these spaces with shaping public opinion. Others see them as noisy and unproductive. Both views persist. Women participate too, though with different limits. Some taverns welcome them. Others discourage their presence. Gardens offer more freedom. Music and dance open small spaces for expression. Whether these moments provide a genuine agency or temporary illusion is something historians continue to explore. As night deepens, laughter grows louder than softer. People drift home in groups or pairs. Not everyone escapes into leisure. Some cannot afford to. Some choose rest instead. But the option exists, and that matters. You leave the noise behind, carrying a lighter feeling. Leisure here does not erase hardship. It punctuates it. It reminds people why they endure long days. London does not offer ease, but it allows moments of joy to flicker in the dark. You breathe easier, step steady, and let that warmth linger as you move on. As you move away from the warmth of taverns and gardens, information begins to press in again. London hums with news. You do not have to seek it out. It finds you carried by voices, paper, and rumour, slipping easily into conversation. Knowing things matters here, being seen to know things matters even more. You pass a stall stacked with printed sheets, fresh ink, still sharp in the air. Newspapers lie folded and refolded, their pages dense with small type. They report wars, trials, prices, scandals. Circulation grows steadily through the century, and reading aloud is common. One paper serves many listeners. A single article becomes a shared experience debated on the spot. Pamphlets pile up everywhere, political arguments, moral warnings, sensational crimes, medical advice. They're cheap, portable, and persuasive. Writers use plain language, strong claims, and confident tones. You notice how easily these texts move between hands. Literacy is uneven, but curiosity is not. Someone always reads for those who cannot. Coffee houses buzz with discussion. Papers are laid out on tables available to all who buy a cup. You hear arguments sharpened quickly. Opinions formed and discarded just as fast. Some contemporaries praise these spaces as engines of public thought. Others worry they spread dissent and misinformation. The tension between informed debate and rumour never fully resolves. News also travels without paper. Street talk moves faster than print. You hear a whispered account of a fire long before it appears in a paper. Exaggeration creeps in easily. Details shift. Yet, these stories shape behaviour. People avoid streets, prepare for shortages, or gather out of curiosity based on what they hear. Official notices appear on walls, proclamations, warnings, announcements of punishment or reward. They are meant to command attention. Whether people obey out of respect or habit is less clear. Some notices fade into the background. Others spark immediate reaction. A detail often missed is how news becomes entertainment. Trials are followed like serial dramas. Executions are anticipated. Scandals unfold over weeks. People choose sides, remember names, argue outcomes. This shared attention creates a sense of participation in events far beyond individual control. Trust varies. Some sources are respected, others mocked. You learn quickly who exaggerates, who listens, who repeats carefully. Reputation applies to information as much as people. Being known as unreliable has consequences. Women engage with news too, though often through conversation rather than print. Doorways, markets, wells become places where stories are exchanged and filtered. Information passes through domestic networks quietly, efficiently. As you continue walking, you realise that living in London means living inside a constant stream of words. Facts, guesses, fears, hopes all blend together. Sorting them is a skill learnt over time. You tuck what you have heard away, unsure what will matter later. Tomorrow, some of it will be confirmed, some denied, some forgotten. But for now, it shapes how you see the city, reminding you that in London, knowledge is never static. It moves, changes, and pulls people along with it, just as surely as the streets beneath your feet. As you move through the evening crowd, appearances begin to matter more than ever. Clothing in London is not just about warmth or modesty. It speaks before you do. Every fabric colour and cut carries meaning, and people read it quickly, often accurately. You notice wigs first. They sit heavily on heads, powdered, pale, carefully shaped. Among men of means, wigs signal respectability and status. Records from tailor and barbers show how widespread their use became, even as some complained of discomfort and expense. Going without one can be interpreted as carelessness or rebellion, depending on context. Women's clothing shapes movement, stays hold the body upright, restricting breath and speed. Skirts are layered, practical yet heavy. You feel how each step requires planning, especially on uneven streets. Clothing teaches posture and restraint. It also communicates virtue or the appearance of it. Cleanliness matters, but perfection is not expected. A brushed coat, a mended hem, a fresh ribbon, these small details suggest effort which carries social weight. Clothing is repaired, repeatedly altered as bodies change or hands pass it down. Tailor and seamstresses thrive on this constant adaptation. Colour is not chosen lightly. Certain shades suggest mourning, celebration, or wealth. Bright dyes cost more. Dark colours hide dirt better. Practical choices often align with social ones. You begin to see the logic in what at first seemed merely decorative. Accessories finish the message, shoes polished as well as possible, buckles shining. A fan used not just for cooling but for expression, gloves worn even when worn thin. These details are noticed. They're commented on. Reputation can hinge on them. Children wear simplified versions of adult dress, reinforcing expectations early. There is little sense of childhood fashion as separate. You watch a child tug at stiff fabric, learning patience along with posture. Clothing laws exist attempting to regulate who may wear what. Enforcement varies, but the idea persists that appearance should reflect station. Whether these rules truly controlled behaviour or simply inspired quiet defiance remains a point of disagreement among historians. A lesser-known habit is how scent accompanies clothing. Lavender tucked into pockets, herbs sewn into linings. This is partly practical, partly symbolic. Smelling pleasant suggests self-control and care. As the evening deepens, you see how people adjust. Coats wrapped tighter, shawls pulled close, clothing adapts to weather and hour, yet the message remains consistent. You are seen before you are known. Walking on, you realise that in London, dressing is a daily negotiation between comfort, cost and expectation. Clothes do not just cover the body. They place it within the city's social map. You straighten slightly without thinking, adjust your sleeve, and continue aware that even now the city is reading you as carefully as you read it. As night approaches, the lines between people feel sharper. You sense them before anyone names them. Class in London is not an abstract idea. It is lived, seen, and reinforced in small, constant ways. You cross invisible boundaries simply by walking from one street to the next. Houses change first. Facades grow cleaner or more crowded. Windows widen or shrink in wealthier areas. Streets feel slightly calmer, better maintained, though never truly quiet. Servants move briskly, eyes lowered, carrying out tasks that keep comfort intact for others. Household accounts from the period show how much money and planning go into maintaining the separation, even when buildings stand only yards apart. You notice how people address one another. Titles matter, tone shifts. Difference is expected in some directions, resented in others. A misplaced word can cause offence. Silence can do the same. Social awareness becomes a skill learned early and practiced daily. Markets reveal tension clearly. Bargaining differs depending on who stands before the store. Credit is extended cautiously. Trust is uneven. A well-dressed customer is assumed reliable. A ragged one is watched closely. These judgments are not always fair, but they are efficient. Economic life here depends on quick assessments. Opportunities are shaped by birth as much as effort. Apprenticeships, marriages, connections, some climb slowly, others never move. Personal letters from ambitious Londoners reveal hope mixed with frustration, suggesting that social mobility existed, but unevenly and often painfully. Resentment simmers quietly. You hear it in jokes, in complaints, in sharp glances. The poor notice excess. The wealthy fear disorder. Each watches the other. Charity attempts to soften the divide, but it also reinforces it, defining who gives and who receives. How effective these efforts were remains contested among historians. Dress reinforces boundaries. Even modest improvements in appearance can shift how someone is treated. You see people adjusting themselves before entering certain areas. Smoothing, fabric, lifting, posture, rehearsing, respectability. Children absorb these distinctions early. They learn where they belong and where they do not. Play crosses lines more easily than adulthood does, but even that fades with time. Expectation settles in. As darkness deepens, You feel the city grow more compartmentalized. Doors close, lights glow behind curtains. Taverns fill differently depending on neighbourhood. Comfort clusters. Hardship does too. Walking on. You understand the class here is not static, but it is persistent. It shapes movement, speech and possibility. London holds everyone together tightly and never evenly. You move between worlds without fully belonging to any aware, now that every step carries not just your weight, but your place. Night settles over London without asking permission. It does not fall evenly. Some streets glow faintly, others vanish into shadow. You feel the change immediately. The air cools, sounds sharpen. Familiar routes feel different, as if the city has rearranged itself while you were not looking. You pull your coat closer and slow your pace. After dark movement becomes deliberate. Street lighting exists, but it is scattered and unreliable. Oil lamps hang at intervals, their flames wavering, casting uneven pools of light. Between them, darkness stretches wide. Contemporary city records show ongoing complaints about broken or unlit lamps, suggesting that nighttime navigation relied more on memory than illumination. Shadows move in ways that make you alert. A cat slips across your path. A figure pauses, then continues. You cannot always tell if someone is watching or simply sharing the same route. Your senses stay tuned. Footsteps echo longer now, giving away distance and direction. Homes close in on themselves. Shutters are drawn. Doors are barred. Inside candlelight flickers softly behind curtains. You catch glimpses of domestic scenes as you pass. A family eating late, someone reading aloud, a woman sewing close to the flame. These moments feel intimate, briefly shared, then gone. Taverns glow brighter at night, spilling warmth and sound onto the street. Lighter drifts out. Arguments flare and fade. You choose carefully whether to pass close or keep distance. Alcohol changes the city's mood. Most nights, nothing happens. Some nights, everything does. Watchmen patrol slowly, calling out the hour and their voices are meant to reassure, to remind you that order exists even in darkness. Whether their presence truly prevented crime or simply offered comfort is still a matter of debate among urban historians. But you find the sound grounding all the same. A lesser-known habit is how people mark safe routes after dark, choosing streets with familiar faces or reliable light. Even if they take longer, this mental mapping is shared quietly, taught rather than written. You follow it instinctively, favouring what feels known. Travel narrows now. Chairs still pass occasionally. Boats move along the river, their lanterns bobbing like distant stars. Walking remains the most common choice, but it carries weight. You adjust your posture, your awareness. You listen more than you look. Sounds shift as the night deepens. Work noises fade. Domestic ones soften. Footsteps stand out sharply. A cough echoes from an open window. Somewhere a baby cries briefly, then quiets. The city breathes slower, but it does not sleep. As you near home, you feel a sense of relief. Familiar doors, known corners. You step inside and close the world out as best you can. Night in London is not just a time. It is a different version of the city, one that demands caution, memory, and trust in routine. You settle aware that tomorrow will begin early, regardless of how the night treats you. For now, you let the city hold its quieter shape, and you rest within it, listening as London murmurs softly around you, even behind closed doors. Another worry lingers quietly in your thoughts. Fire, it is not dramatic fear, not constant panic, but a steady awareness that never fully leaves. London is built close and high, with timber frames and narrow gaps, and flames do not respect boundaries. You smell smoke long before you see it. Not the friendly scent of a hearth, but something sharper, more urgent. Everyone recognizes the difference. Cooking fires burn daily, candles flicker everywhere, sparks drift. Most nights pass without incident, but when fire takes hold, it moves fast. City regulations exist, shaped by memory of earlier disasters. Chimneys are inspected, certain materials are discouraged, buckets and hooks are required in some neighbourhoods. Parish records show repeated efforts to organise fire prevention, suggesting a city trying to learn from experience. Even if enforcement varies widely, you notice how people prepare without ceremony. Water barrels sit ready, ladders lean against walls. Neighbours know who will run where if an alarm is raised. Firefighting here depends on speed and cooperation, not specialised forces. When a cry goes up, everyone listens. Insurance plays a role. Some buildings display metal plaques marking them as covered. Private fire brigades exist, hired by insurers to protect their investments. This system means help arrives selectively. Whether this encouraged safer building or simply protected wealth more efficiently is a question that still draws discussion among historians. At night, fear sharpens. Flames are harder to spot. Wind carries embers unpredictably. You imagine how quickly a small mistake could become a street-wide disaster. This is not imagination alone. Accounts describe people fleeing half-dressed, carrying what they can, watching years of life vanish in minutes. A lesser-known detail is how some families practiced informal drills, deciding in advance what to grab if fire came: papers, money, a single piece of furniture. These choices reveal priorities shaped by experience. Survival first, memory second. You hear the distant clang of a bell, not urgent, just marking time. You relax slightly. No alarm tonight. Still, you extinguish your candle, carefully watching the wick until you are sure. Carelessness is judged harshly. A single spark can make you infamous. As you settle, you feel the weight of the city above and around you. Fire is a shared risk binding neighbours together in vigilance. It teaches caution, cooperation, and humility. You drift toward rest, knowing that safety here is never absolute, only maintained through habit and attention. London sleeps lightly when it sleeps at all, always ready to wake at the smell of smoke. By morning, you are reminded that you never walk through London alone, even when no other people are near. Animals share the city with you at every turn. Some work, some wander, some simply survive. Their presence is constant, familiar, and occasionally alarming. Horses dominate first. You hear them before you see them. Hooves striking stone harness, leather creaking. They pull carts, coaches, wagons bearing the weight of the city's movement. Stable yards hide behind ordinary doors, their smells drifting out into the street. Written accounts from the period note that tens of thousands of horses worked within London at any given time, shaping traffic trade and daily rhythm. Dogs appear everywhere. Some are owned, others tolerated, many half-wild. They guard shops, follow butchers, sleep near hearths. You step carefully around them, most ignore you. A few watch closely. Bites happen, but they are accepted as part of city life. How these animals affected public health is still questioned by modern researchers, especially when considering disease and waste. Cats slip along walls and roofs, hunting quietly. They are valued for their work, not affection. Rats thrive regardless. You glimpse one dart into a drain, bold and well-fed. Grain stores, cellars and markets. Feed them generously. Complaints about rats fill diaries and letters, yet solutions remain limited. Traps help. Cats help. Nothing solves the problem entirely. Livestock moves through streets without apology. Pigs are driven towards slaughter. Chickens cluck from baskets. Cows appear near dairies milked where they stand. Freshness demands proximity. You learn to step aside, accept the noise, the smell, the unpredictability. The city bends around these creatures rather than excluding them. A curious practice from the time is how some animals are treated as neighbours. A familiar dog is fed scraps. A known horse is greeted. Children named stray cats. This quiet companionship softens daily hardship. Whether this closeness improved morale in crowded conditions is something social historians continue to explore. Animals also mark danger. A spooked horse signals trouble. Dogs barking at night raise alarm. Even rats fleeing can suggest fire or disturbance. You learn to read these signs instinctively. As you walk on, you realise animals are not background here. They are participants. They shape movement, sound, smell. They remind you that London is not fully human-made. It is shared. You step carefully, adjust your path, and move with them. Because in this city, survival depends on understanding every living thing around you, not just the people. As weeks pass in your imagined London, you begin to notice how strongly the seasons shape everything. Time here is not just counted by clocks or bells, it is felt through light temperature and the body's response to change. The city behaves differently as the year turns. And so do you. Winter arrives first in memory, sharp and unforgiving. Daylight shortens and work compresses into fewer hours of visibility. Cold seeps into houses, even the well-built ones. Coal becomes essential. Prices rise. People speak of fuel with the same concern as food. Contemporary household accounts show winter expenses spiking, forcing difficult choices. You wear extra layers indoors and learn to keep still to preserve warmth. Snow transforms the streets briefly. Children play, adults struggle, wheels slip, deliveries slow, ice forms in ruts and channels. Accidents increase. You move cautiously, gripping walls, watching every step. Winter illnesses spread easily. Coughs linger. Fevers take hold. Survival feels heavier. Spring brings relief, but also mud thawing streets soften, and the city smells different again. Markets fill with new produce, fragile and eagerly awaited. Work picks up pace. Spirits lift slightly. You notice more movement, more conversation. Yet rain is unpredictable, soaking clothes and tempers alike. Summer is loud, crowded, and often uncomfortable. Heat thickens the air, smells intensify, food spoils faster. The river grows sluggish, disease worries resurface. Personal diaries often describe summer as both lively and exhausting. A season of opportunity and risk combined. People adjust routines constantly, rising earlier, resting briefly in shade, choosing routes based on sun and smell. A lesser-known habit is how some families slept outdoors during extreme heat in yards or near open windows, trading safety for comfort. How widespread this practice truly was remains uncertain, but accounts suggest it happened often enough to be remembered. Autumn feels like preparation. Harvests arrive, prices shift, fuel is stored, clothes are mended. The city seems to take a breath, organising itself for the cold ahead. Light fades earlier again. You sense urgency returning. Festivals and holidays punctuate the year, offering moments of release. Yet even celebration bends to weather. A fair in rain feels different from one in sun. Seasons colour memory. You realise that Londoners do not fight the season so much as negotiate with them. Each one demands adjustment, patience, resilience. There is comfort in familiarity. You know what comes next as you walk on wrapped appropriately. You feel time moving not forward but around you, cycling gently. The city endures through every change, and so do the people within it, adapting their days, their habits, and their hopes to the slow turning of the year. As the seasons turn, so do relationships. Love in London is rarely separate from necessity. It grows in tight spaces under watchful eyes shaped by money, reputation, and timing. Romance exists, but it learns quickly to share space with practicality. You notice how couples move together through the streets, close but not careless. Touch is brief. Glances do more work than hands. Public behaviour is observed, remembered, repeated. Courtship happens through visits, letters, and introductions carefully managed by family or neighbours. Marriage is a goal, but is also a contract discussed openly, in terms of income, housing, and support. Marriage records show that many people wed later than you might expect, often waiting until they could afford to keep a household. Love alone is rarely enough. Couples calculate, sometimes reluctantly. You hear conversations about rent work prospects and shared labour. Affection fits around these concerns rather than replacing them. Intimacy exists beyond marriage, though it is spoken of quietly. Some relationships operate in the margins, tolerated until they are not. Pregnancy brings scrutiny. Women bear greater risk socially and physically. Men's responsibility is discussed often and enforced unevenly. How much freedom individuals truly had in choosing partners is still debated by historians, especially across class lines. Homes shape intimacy strongly. Privacy is scarce. Shared rooms mean shared knowledge. Couples find moments where they can. Night offers cover, but also danger. Candles are extinguished carefully, doors are closed softly. You sense how restraint and patience become part of affection. Sex education comes through experience and rumour rather than instruction. Knowledge passes unevenly. Misunderstanding is common. Consequences can be severe. Parish records note cases of abandoned children and disputed paternity reminders that intimacy here carries weight far beyond pleasure. Yet tenderness survives. You see it in small gestures, a shared piece of bread, a hand steadying another on uneven ground, a look exchanged across a room. These moments are not recorded, but they matter deeply. Widowhood reshapes intimacy again. Some remarry quickly out of need. Others remain alone, valuing autonomy hard-won. Letters from widows reveal relief mixed with loss, suggesting complex emotional landscapes that resist simple explanation. As night deepens, you pass a window where a couple sits close, speaking softly. Their voices do not carry, their presence does. You move on without staring, respecting the fragile boundary between public and private. You realise that love in London is not fragile, but it is careful. It bends to circumstance without breaking entirely. Relationships here are built to last not through fantasy, but through shared endurance. And as you continue walking, you carry that understanding with you, aware that affection here is quiet, resilient, and deeply human. As you slow your pace, you begin to notice people who move differently, not with the urgency of work or the lightness of youth, but with care shaped by years. Aging in London is not marked by retirement or retreat. It is visible, practical, and often precarious. You see older men leaning on canes worn smooth by use, women moving steadily with baskets balanced just so wrinkles deepen hands, thicken backs curve. There is respect in some glances, impatience in others. Growing old here means adapting constantly, because the city does not soften its demands. Few stop working entirely. If the body allows some form of labour continues, small trades, watching children, mending, selling small goods, parish documents, and poor relief records, show that many elderly people relied on a patchwork of income, family help, and charity rather than a single source of support. Security is rare. Family matters greatly. Those with children nearby fare better. Shared households are common, not always by choice. Generations overlap under one roof, negotiating space and authority. Tension exists, but so does care. Who supports whom can shift quickly after illness or injury for those without family options narrow. Parish aid offers minimal relief, often tied to strict conditions. Pride complicates acceptance. Some avoid help as long as possible. Others depend on it early. How effective this system truly was in preventing hardship remains uncertain, and personal accounts suggest wide variation. A lesser-known aspect of ageing here is how knowledge becomes currency. Older people are consulted for memory craft and experience. They know which remedies worked, which mistakes cost dearly, which streets change fastest. This wisdom carries weight even when bodies weaken. Health declines unevenly. Some remain strong into advanced years. Others struggle early. Pain becomes companionable, managed rather than cured. You notice how people make room for it, adjusting posture, pace, expectation. Death is closer in thought as age advances, but not always feared. Many speak of it plainly, preparing quietly. Wills are written, belongings distributed early. This practicality offers a form of peace. As you pass an older woman resting on a step, she nods to you, eyes sharp, despite her stillness. You return the nod, sensing recognition rather than weakness. Age here is not invisible. It is woven into daily life, walking on. You understand that survival in London is not just about youth and strength. It is about endurance, memory, and adaptation over time. Aging does not remove you from the city. It changes how you move within it, asking patience where speed once ruled, and offering perspective in return. You become aware of death not as an interruption, but as a neighbour. It does not arrive only in emergencies or old age. It moves quietly through London, present in routine conversation and custom, you do not seek it out. Yet it appears anyway, folded into daily life with surprising familiarity. You pass a small procession moving slowly down the street. A simple coffin, a handful of mourners, no dramatic display, just steady footsteps and lowered voices. Funerals happen often enough that traffic adjusts around them. Bells toll, briefly commanding attention, then release it again. Parish burial registers show a constant rhythm of loss, marking deaths from illness, accident, and age with equal formality. Mourning follows rules. Clothing darkens, behaviour shifts. Time is measured in weeks and months of restraint. These signals are widely understood. They invite sympathy and set boundaries. You notice how people respond gently, offering space rather than words. Grief here is visible but contained. Burial grounds sit close to where people live. Churchyards filled steadily. Graves are reused. Space is limited. The earth is crowded like the city above it. Some complained of the smell in warmer months while others accepted it as unavoidable. How much these conditions affected health was debated, even at the time, and the question remains unresolved today. Death visits homes directly. Bodies are washed, laid out, watched over. Neighbours come and go. Children see more than you might expect. There is little attempt to shield them. Familiarity replaces fear. You sense how this shapes attitudes toward loss, making it heavy but not shocking. Preparation matters. People speak openly about dying, especially as they age. Wills are discussed. Instructions are given. Personal papers from the period show careful attention to burial wishes and debts, suggesting a desire for order even in leaving. Control offers comfort. A small but telling practice is how keepsakes are handled. Locks of hair, rings, written prayers. These items pass between hands, quietly anchoring memory to something physical. Their emotional weight far exceeds their material value. Public executions, disease outbreaks, and accidents reinforce death's presence. But so do quieter moments. A sudden stillness in a familiar window, a shop that does not open. Absence is noticed quickly in close communities. As evening falls, you feel the city settle around this knowledge. Life continues, not in spite of death, but alongside it. Londoners learn to carry both without stopping. You move on with a softened step, aware that mortality here is not hidden away. It is acknowledged, prepared for, and absorbed into the rhythm of living. And in that acceptance, there is a strange calm, a sense that life's fragility makes each ordinary day more solid, more real. As you continue walking through the city, as you keep walking, something subtle shifts in the air. London feels the same, yet not quite. Beneath the familiar routines, you sense movement like a tide beginning to turn. Change does not announce itself loudly here. It arrives quietly threaded into everyday habits, until one day it feels inevitable. You notice new shops appearing beside old ones. Windows display unfamiliar goods, printed cotton, new tools, imported curiosities. Trade routes stretch farther now, pulling London into wider networks. Shipping records from the period show increasing volumes of goods moving through the city, feeding appetite and ambition alike. You feel the city leaning outward, curious and hungry. Ideas move too. In coffee houses and workshops, conversations sound different. People question more openly. Tradition still holds weight, but it is no longer unchallenged. Education spreads slowly, unevenly, but noticeably. More people read, more people argue. Whether this growing exchange of ideas truly reach beyond a narrow slice of society is still uncertain, but its presence is undeniable. Work begins to change shape. Some tasks speed up, others concentrate in new ways. Small workshops grow busier. Division of labour becomes more visible. You sense both opportunity and unease. Change promises improvement, but it also threatens what people know. Letters from trades, people reveal excitement mixed with fear, hope tempered by caution. The city itself adapts. Streets are repaired, widened here and there. New buildings rise beside old ones. Planning remains imperfect, but intention grows clearer. London is trying to manage itself, not just endure. How successful these efforts were varies by neighbourhood, but the attempt matters. You hear talk of science, of experiments of progress. Some embrace these ideas eagerly, others mock them. A curious detail is how demonstrations of new inventions draw crowds, not always because they understand them, but because novelty itself entertains. Wonder becomes a shared experience. At the same time, resistance lingers. Customs hold fast. Many prefer what is known. Change feels risky in a city where survival already demands effort. You sense this tension everywhere between holding on and moving forward. As evening settles, you realise that London stands at a threshold without fully knowing it. The future presses gently against the present, not yet dominant but persistent. You walk on feeling that you are witnessing a city in transition, still rooted in old rhythms, yet quietly preparing for something new. Change here is not sudden. It is lived slowly, one ordinary day at a time. Night returns not as a stranger now, but as something familiar. You have walked this city through its hours, its routines, its worries, and its small comforts. And London feels less overwhelming than it once did. The streets settle into patterns you recognise. You know which sounds matter and which can be ignored. The city no longer demands all of your attention at once. You slow your steps, letting the rhythm carry you. Lamps flicker softly. Footsteps pass and fade. Somewhere a door closes carefully, as if not to disturb the night. Windows glow with low candle light, each one holding a private world. You will never fully know. That is all right. You no longer feel the need to. The smells soften now. Smoke thins. Food scents fade into memory. The air cools steady and calm. You breathe more deeply, less guarded. London at rest is not silent, but it is gentler. Its edges blur. You feel yourself becoming part of its background. Another presence moving quietly through shared space. You think back over the day, the crowded streets, the labouring bodies, the markets and meals, the risks and routines. None of it feels shocking anymore. It feels lived in, ordinary. That is the greatest adjustment the city demands. Not toughness, but familiarity. As you reach a familiar doorway, you pause. Inside waits shelter, however modest, a place to sit, to lie down, to let your muscles finally loosen. You step in and close the door, shutting out the last of the street sounds. The city remains just beyond the walls, breathing steadily. You settle into stillness, letting the weight of the day drift away. London does not ask you to solve it, to fix it, or even to understand it fully. It only asks that you move with it, adapt and rest when you can. The candle burns low, shadows stretch and soften. Your thoughts slow, no longer jumping from sound to sound. This city fades into a low hum, comforting in its persistence. You let your eyes close, knowing that tomorrow will come, as it always does, announced by bells, footsteps and smoke in the air. For now you rest within the familiar shape of the night, held gently by a city that never truly sleeps, but knows how to whisper sweet dreams, musics,